Good afternoon and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the webinar on next generation AI-based endpoint protection with SentinelOne. I would like to thank everyone who took their precious time from their busy schedule day to join this webinar. Let me hand over to our SecOps and Data Security Head, Kunal Sharma. Over to you, Kunal.
Thanks, Vikash. Just a quick hygiene check. Is my voice audible to everyone?
Yes.
Yes, Kunal.
Okay, thanks. Hi, everyone. My name is Kunal. I head data security and managed services for Positka. You might have seen some introduction about Positka on the screen. Today, I'm going to talk about how do you protect your endpoint devices and what are the tools available, and we will pick up one of those tools and we'll just show you how it can help you protect the endpoint. Today I have Prajwal with me. Prajwal is one of our security experts and he's an expert on endpoint protection. He also has expertise on protecting data, and he also manages threat hunting for our security operations. Prajwal, may I request you to start your screen?
Sure.
Is my screen visible? Hello?
Yes, we can see.
Okay.
So that's the topic for today, autonomous AI endpoint security platform introduction. I mean, each of these words, if you would see, has a meaning to it. Why did we choose autonomous? Why do we rely on AI? And why do we need to protect the endpoint? We will talk about each of these points today. And let me just give a brief about why do we choose this title. Now, the expectation these days from any of the security tools you go ahead, you assess is, can it detect and respond? I think that's a very vital characteristics we would expect from any security tool which would like to go. Manual interventions are prone to many errors. They add fatigue to your security operations and slows down the detection and response capabilities. And that's why the expectation is the tool or the application should be able to automatically detect and respond. AI is important because the threats are changing, right? It's no more signature-based detections are no more useful. You need to have self-learning AI-based capabilities built up in your security applications and security stack, so that we can run as fast as the hackers and the malware community is running. With that, I'll just go through the discussion highlights. We'll be talking about giving you a view about why protecting data security from endpoint perspective is important. What are the risks? Why do we need to prioritize endpoint security? What are the key considerations to enhance your endpoint security with respect to endpoint detection and extended detection response? Then we'll talk about one of the tools that I mentioned earlier. We'll talk about introducing SentinelOne, one of a renowned leader in endpoint protection. That will be followed by the demo. Like I said, some of the slides, I'm not the only one who's going to talk. I've got Prajwal who will be hosting this with me. Now, before we move ahead, we would just have a quick poll to understand which assets you think are most important ones to protect. You might see on the screen there are polls. There's a poll which has come up talking about cloud. You need to protect cloud, endpoint, or databases. I'm sure there will be many more, but let's focus on these three which are more vulnerable these days. I'll just take a minute for people to respond. Folks, it's a Thursday morning and weekend is just around the corner. I see only 9 people have responded so far. If you haven't yet responded, just pick up your mouse or tab, choose the option. Cool. Are we good to end the poll, Vikas? Right. So we see 60% of you think endpoint definitely need monitoring and are required. You are right. What surprises me is no one picked up consider databases as their first choice. Of course, databases are where your crown jewels reside, right? But endpoints are the gateway to it. And it doesn't matter how strong controls you put up, if your gateways are vulnerable, right? It opens up the whole tsunami of attackers and rogue people to exfiltrate your data. Cool. With that, we move on. I would invite Prajwal now to talk about some of the next slides, and he would cover up some of the topics. Prajwal, over to you.
Sure, Kunal. Thanks for that. So, hi folks, this is Prajwal Parashar. So today, as Kunal already mentioned, we are going to talk about an interesting area of security, which is called endpoint security. So before we dive deep into that topic, we should have a basic understanding about what is an endpoint, right? So let me just move forward a little bit. Yeah. So basically, any device, right, which is part of a network, or it is the end device on a network, right, is called an endpoint. So usually we as users interact with these devices, right? They usually cover desktop, laptops. Let me use. So they usually cover desktops, right? Laptops, servers, mobile devices, right? Then we have printers, right? Wearables are also like smart watches and smart wearables. We have network devices, cloud-based applications. So basically, these are at the end point of a network. So usually we interact with them. So this is what I would say is a definition or what an endpoint is, right? So moving forward, so now we know what an endpoint is. Now, what is the threat to an endpoint? So anything which affects an endpoint, right, or which can take leverage over an endpoint in order to conduct some malicious activities will be a threat to an endpoint. Here we have examples of data loss and theft that is very common these days, right? We have phishing, which is, I would say, the biggest threat vector or the biggest attack causing vector, right? So most of the attacks are in today's scenario are originating from a phishing attempt, right? Then we have 0 days. 0 days are basically bugs or vulnerabilities which are not previously known, which are completely new, right? And suddenly they appear and you have to deal with them, right? Now, ransomware, as we have shown, is one of the biggest threats in current scenario to an endpoint. And why is that? The thing is, it's very, so if you have 1,000 endpoints on your system, right, in your network, only one needs to be compromised, and that could basically compromise your entire system. Now we are not just talking about a simple compromise, we are talking about data encryption here. For example, if I lock your house with my lock and take key with me, will you be able to get out of your house? You will not be able to, right? So same thing happens with an endpoint. Somebody encrypts your data with their key, right? In the ransomware attack, right? So that is what we are dealing with in today's scenario. Moving on, why is endpoint security important? I have mentioned a few things before this topic, right? There are a few facts which I would like to produce before diving deep into this particular thing, right? So, please give me a second. So yeah, so basically, according to Gartner's report, in 2020, more than 5.8 billion enterprise endpoints were being used. So you can easily understand the area, the threat landscape, or I would say the amount of devices we are dealing with, right? Now, compared to 2020, in 21, the ransomware incidents itself increased by 148%. So what does this tell you? So let me also recall this, right? So basically this time was when we were sitting at homes. This was COVID situation. Most of the people were working from homes, right? Most of the endpoints were far away from a secured location. Individuals were responsible for their endpoints. And this is when we saw this particular rise, right? So this itself shows that how much dependent, like how much susceptible endpoints are to an attack, right? One more thing to basically note here is 47% of organizations don't use endpoint security solution. And we have seen the organizations which are using endpoint security solutions are not safe in a way, right? Because either they don't use a good solution or they don't use it properly, right? They are not configured properly, right? Now, 47% organizations are not even using an endpoint security solution. So you can understand what's happening, right? Now, to give you a hypothetical situation or to let you, run your brains and run your mind, right? What will happen if your endpoint is under an attack? Like, what will you do? What will be your reaction, right? Now, I am asking this question, or I'm giving you this question based on the scenario you don't have an endpoint security solution. What will happen to your endpoint? You will definitely be compromised, right? How much time will you give to this? How much effort will be required to resolve this whole situation? So these are the things we have to think about while basically talking about why we need endpoint security, right? If you have any questions, please feel free to write in the chat. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask us. We'll be happy to have a good conversation here, right? So please feel free to ask any questions if you have. Moving on. Now we have talked about endpoint. We have talked about why we need endpoint security. Now the question is, if you are an individual, this is the question you'll be asking to yourself. Why do I need endpoint security? Can endpoint security enhance my current cybersecurity posture? If yes, in what way, right? So basically, let me take you through a nostalgic journey, right? We used to have legacy endpoint protection solutions. Like basically, if I'm not wrong, 5 or 10 years ago, we used to have legacy endpoint protection solutions. They were working fine according to their time. But if people are still dependent on that, right, they have to know that the scenario has changed completely, right? Now we have different varieties of threats. We have different varieties of malwares, types of attacks, right, and types of different types of threats, right? Earlier we used to have known malwares, right? Malwares which are frequently used, which had a common hash, or I would say which had a common signature, right? Endpoint protections were really good at that, right? If you had a known malware, a known signature, a known hash, they will be performing better than any other solution. But now the scenario has changed. Malwares are basically unknown, right? Then there are fileless attacks. Fileless attacks, in other words, can also be called memory-based attacks, right? Which they usually take place inside the system memory, right? So legacy endpoint protection solutions are not really good at that, right? They can claim next gen thing or stuff like that, but if you are a signature based or a hash based, you have a hash based identification, then you cannot prevent against unknown malware or fileless attack, right? But today we have seen a development which is called AI, right? Now AI is being implemented almost everywhere. And why is that? Because it reduces human effort, right? That is the basic definition of a machine, right? And now we are talking about a smart machine which can learn on its own, right? So that is what we are having right now. So basically, AI based endpoint protection platforms can help you defend against known as well as unknown malwares, fileless as well as file based malwares, and they can also help you in responding, investigating, and providing a response. The thing is, this is what we need, right? This is the basic necessity in today's cyber situation, right? Moving on. Now, basically, we have a poll here.
So, sorry to interrupt as well. Now, before we get into this, Paul, can you just go back to the previous slide?
Yeah.
One question for the audience, just for clarity, this is a very important part, which I suggest we need to understand. That why do we need to enhance our security defense against this kind of new threats? I would just like to ask if there is any clarity further needed on why do we need to move away from legacy endpoints to next gen AI? No questions here. I would assume that's very clear then. Go ahead.
Okay. Moving on, we'll have a short poll now, right? Vikas, can we have the poll now? Can we have the poll, please? So basically, this poll is just to know what cybersecurity solution are you primarily using in your organization, right? We have SIEM, which are typically used for monitoring, right? So basically, they provide you the coverage over your like whole environment. We have DLP. We have two types of DLP: network DLP, endpoint DLP, right? So basically, they also prevent, they address that data leakage or data loss part, right? Data theft part. So they prevent users, internal users or external users from downloading or uploading files beyond a certain limit, right? And more, much more, right? We have typical firewalls, IDS, IPS, secure web gateways, all those network security devices. And then we have CASB, which is a cloud access security broker. This is for cloud security and cloud coverage. So basically, just wanted to know what devices you are using, and this will definitely correlate in the further slides. Please feel free to vote. It's totally anonymous. Nobody will know who's taking the poll. Yeah. Okay. So I think people have voted. I think there are still half of the people left, but let's move on from this point on. So basically, people are like 88% of the people are saying they have SIEM, right? And 13% of the people are saying they have network security, right? So considering half of them are left, I'll still explain for all four of these, right? I'll consider all four of these, right? So why we did this poll was, now let me draw a little bit. So basically, let's say you have a CASB, right, which is for cloud security, right? I hope my screen is clearly visible.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have CASB for cloud security, right? We have DLP for data leakage prevention, right? Right. We have SIEM, right? For coverage, monitoring, right? We have UAM to see UAM or UEBA or other solutions to monitor user activities, right? Apart from that, we also have some other solutions like DAM, which is for database activity monitoring, right? Database activity monitoring, right? So why I am mentioning these tools to you? These tools take preventive measures, right? These are prevention tools. Cloud security, okay, I understand. Cloud security, CASB can give you coverage, right? Can protect your cloud, but cloud doesn't even cover the whole endpoint surface, right? Cloud might have just an like it's a part of an endpoint, right? Like it has some parts of an endpoint, right? Let's say DLP prevents your data from being leaked, right? SIEM, it shows you what's happening in your environment, but it doesn't do any protection, right? And why I'm saying protection, I'll let you know in a minute. We say UEBA, we say user activity monitoring. It also it also correlates events with user activities, just to let everybody know what a user is behaving like. So basically, these are prevention measures. Now let's take a scenario where your machine has a ransomware running on it, or a malware running on it, right? One of your users downloaded a malware file from somewhere, right? Let's say there's a chance that one of them did, right? Even after having these kind of solutions, right? The moment they download it, the moment they run it, your first layer of defense fails, which is the prevention layer, which is covered by most of these solutions. Now, how will you protect it if you don't have a protection layer after your first layer of defense? Can your first layer of defense prevent the malware from running inside your endpoints? Can your first layer of defense prevent the lateral movement within endpoints? Can your first layer of defense, if it cannot stop it from coming in, how will it stop it from exfiltrating the data outside? Right? So the situation is, we cannot rely on them. Like, I know these are very required, very necessary solutions, but these are not the complete solution. They cannot completely protect your environment until and unless you have something to protect your endpoints. I am not emphasizing that endpoint are the only solutions you need. You still need these solutions because you need to protect an environment, not a single device, right? You still need these solutions, but they will not protect you from something like a ransomware, a malware, or a data exfiltration, lateral movement kind of thing. So that is the reason, that is more the reason why EDR/XDR can enhance your cybersecurity posture. That is the reason why you need it. That is the reason why you're not secure if you don't have it, right? So from this, now I'll transfer it to you, Kunal. Over to you.
Thanks, Prajwal. Can I just get a chance to share my screen?
Yeah, sure. Give me a second, please.
Thanks, Prajwal. Screen is visible, right?
Yes.
I'm showing addressing number D, SentinelOne. Now, before I just proceed with introducing this platform, let me take a quick question here. Sonam has asked a question. Sonam, your question is, how long does it take to implement a solution? Let me address it by just first introducing the platform, and then I'll address the question. Now, Prajwal talked about this particular page where we were establishing the need that while you have a good security stack with DLP, SIEM, and UAM, these are not a foolproof solution, or they have certain limitations, and that's where an EDR solution comes into play. And today, I'll talk about SentinelOne, which is one of the trusted tool in the market. It has got some good credentials. It has been recognized by Gartner, KuppingerCole, and Forrester for their solutioning. Apart from establishing just the big names and the credibility of the tool, let me also talk about some of the solution features. Sorry about that. Now, SentinelOne is not just one EDR solution. Basically, it's a platform which does endpoint protection. It has got endpoint detection and response. It can manage quite a lot of tools and integrations. It also involves managed service as a part of MDR, and it protects you from threat feeds. Right? It has got IP reputations built up. It has got automatic analysis. All of these are totally fed into it. The SentinelOne runs into two modes: detect mode and protect mode. In both the modes, it's quite capable of detecting any kind of threat which your endpoint would be susceptible to. And there's a variety of endpoints which it protects. All popular endpoint clients. It also gives you a good coverage over the server endpoints and the VM environment as well. SentinelOne also has got good integration with the ecosystem. As you would see in this slide, it can integrate with a lot of platforms, Linux, Oracle. It can work well with Deception Tech. It can also integrate very well with Okta and other kind of identity management solutions to manage, to get feeds and provide the analyst sufficient arsenal power to do the investigations pretty well. In terms of orchestration, it can really integrate well with your monitoring tools. The logos here are some of the logos here, not necessarily it is limited to only these logos. The integrations are very well basic part of any security stack you have today. In terms of managing the incidents and tickets as a case management, it can very well integrate with most popular ITSM tools. It can also integrate with your customized commercial threat intel, and it has got its own threat intel as well. These are some of the integrations I just wanted to highlight today. Now, how does the solution actually work? And here I'll be talking about three capabilities. One is, and these are the ones which anyone would expect from a good endpoint protection solution. Number one would be the ability to detect how well the tool can detect a threat. The second one would be about the ability to respond, how good they are into responding. And number three would be how well they protect against the threat. Let me pick up the first one here, ability to detect. As you would see, most earlier ones, the legacy, as Prajwal was mentioning, the legacy endpoint protections were signature based. They can act once they detect certain particular behavior. SentinelOne works a little differently. It doesn't just look at the signature. It looks at the behavior part of it, So where does this actually help? Now look at today's scenario where a malware or a log file might just be sitting in a system without moving anywhere, without showing any threats. But later on, the moment the behavior is identified, it creates a pattern, and based on this pattern, it can detect a log file, a log user, or a log application. That's one of the key features, not just on SentinelOne. I mean, you could be looking out for a behavior-based feature from any AI engine-based endpoint protection, and that should be the #1 feature we should be looking forward for. Now, how does this feature actually help SentinelOne? Here, I'm not going to talk about SentinelOne artifact per se. Let me bring in the MITRE Unity attack evaluation done by Gartner. And here you would see capability-wise, SentinelOne far exceeds any other tool in the market. And just to explain this a bit detail, on the axis here, you would see is a measure of how many detections was the tool able to perform, and how many were actually missed. And you would see here the data talks for itself. SentinelOne gives 100% detection, and others are still catching up with it. To give you more insight about the ability to detect, these are some numbers you would see. 100% visibility, all the steps were detected. SentinelOne could do better than any other on this front. Analytic coverage, again, all the steps were had a high analytics coverage, more than any other tool in the market. The last three are my favorite ones when I speak about this, right? No detection were missed, no delayed modifiers, and no configuration changes were required. Now, what does it mean is the tool, the other tools took some time. Let me just talk about delays. The other tools, when who were part of this analysis, when they were tested against, there were certain delays before they actually raised an alarm, before they raised an alert. And these delays was because they were slow, or they couldn't detect the behavior so fast as SentinelOne had done. Second one is how many configuration changes were required out of the box before the tool was actually effective to deliver this zero detections and zero delay. For SentinelOne, the configuration changes required were zero. All the settings which would be needed to achieve this zero detection and zero delay came out of the box on SentinelOne. What it means is the ease of implementation. It not only detects, but it detects faster, and it detects without any configuration changes. Now, that doesn't mean that configuration changes are not allowed on SentinelOne. It's quite flexible. We can play around with the policies, the thresholds, the rules, all that are quite customizable. The point I'm trying to make here is the time to go and make it live would be much shorter because of the zero configuration changes. Now, Sonam, you had a question here about how long does it take? If it's a fresh greenfield deployment, it might be as fast as 2 to 3 weeks. If it is required for us to remove the existing EDR and replace it with SentinelOne, we can add up another 2 to 3 weeks to add it up. More or less within 4 to 6 weeks of time, your environment will be protected with the most advanced, the best detection tool without any configuration changes. Does that answer your question, Sonam?
Yes, Kunal. Thank you for your answer.
Thanks. Next, I would just like to talk about the ability to respond. Here again, SentinelOne has a storyline approach. There are just simple 4 steps. All the steps are autonomous. The actions can be configured by the analyst at the time of setting up the tool on how do we want the response actions to be. I won't go much into detail. I think when we do the demo, we'll see some of the actions. Storyline is something which I wanted to stress upon. It can help you identify the source from where it originated, how the threat or the log movement have been It can clearly visualize the lateral movements and what kind of effect, which are the devices you need to contain, and how to heal the infected files and infected users. All that can be done as a storyline, which empowers the analyst to make fast and quick decisions. The last part, which is the brownie point for SentinelOne, is the rollback feature. It not only detects and heals the infected system, it can also restore it to a previous version. We can share more details about it, but for the purpose of this webinar, this is one of the very strong feature of SentinelOne, which allows the users to get back to their state before the ransomware, and all the files can be stored. Ability to address threats. Here I want to give some examples of what kind of deep visibility actions are available in SentinelOne. You can each one of these are considered quite critical factors, be it a login, be it the process, be it the behavior indicators. You can switch on, switch off depending on this. This doesn't impact the performance of your devices, servers, or network. These are very low bandwidth changes which can be done, and will give much deeper visibility on incidents, threat investigations to the analyst. It can also automate the data correlations based on this visibility. And once these are integrated with your existing SIM platform, it further enhances the capability of your correlation actions and remediation processes. This is a brilliant use case of having a more amalgamated solution for you with EDR plus SIM. And we have a variety of use cases where we have enhanced the threat surface. We have enhanced the security posture of the organizations by integrating SentinelOne feeds to SIM. Before we move on to demo, just take a quick check. Any questions on these topics which I just shared? I'll just summarize this for you here, right? The three things I talked about is detection. SentinelOne can do it with 0 delays, 0 configuration changes, 100% detection. Number 2, ability to respond. It can respond pretty well with its starter approach and rollback feature. Third one, which is ability to address threat. You can configure the tool for deep visibility. You can integrate with SIM. You can integrate this with threat intel feeds to run any kind of preventive threat management you would like to do. Prajwal now will share his screen and will take you through a demo.
Thanks for that, Kunal. Give me a minute while I share my screen. So I guess my screen is visible. Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, I have a dummy machine here. It's my Windows server machine, and then I have my SentinelOne here. So let me start with the basics. Okay. So basically, this is what SentinelOne looks like. SentinelOne is an agent-based system, right? Like any endpoint protection system, right? So basically, this is what the initial dashboard looks like. You can configure it. It's configurable. We can see what threats, unresolved threats we have, how many infected endpoints we have, threats by detection engine. So I'll come to all these things. I'll address these things. Threats by type. As you can see, there is a virus and there is a ransomware there, right? So you have agent, we have agent version coverage, endpoint connection status, whether the endpoints are connected, disconnected, right? What basically services secured by domain, secure devices by OS, unpatched devices. So basically all types of information is present on this dashboard. And this is totally configurable. Totally, you can play with it, right? Moving on, the next thing I'll come to is the agents, right? So agents in SentinelOne are called sentinels, right? Sounds like a cool name, maybe out of a X-Men movie or something. So every sentinel, right? The moment you download it, gets registered to the SentinelOne cloud. This is what it looks like. And currently it's showing red, which means there is something malicious going on there, or there is a file which is corrupt or a malware file. So I'll talk more about it. We have a lot of things here, right? Recently, SentinelOne introduced something called Sentinel tags. Basically, you can add tags to endpoints and then filter them that way. We have policies. So as Kunal mentioned earlier, so basically SentinelOne has two types of policies. One is detect, one is protect, right? I hope my screen is not like very small, or do I need to magnify it more, or it's fine?
It's readable.
Okay, it's readable. Okay. So basically, detect means, so there are two types of threats here, right? One is malicious threat and one is suspicious threat. So suspicious threat would be the threat you are not sure whether it's malicious or not, right? And malicious threat is you are definitely sure, right? So detect means it will only generate alerts. It will not take any action, right? And when I say action, I mean it will not kill or quarantine, it will not remediate, and it will not roll back, right? That is what detect means. And then since malicious threat is on detect mode, suspicious is not, it's not required to have it on detect mode, right? Malicious threat, there is one more property called policy called protect mode. So this is where the actions start to happen. If you think that basically the division you are able, the division is clear, suspicious threat and malicious threat. So if some threat is suspicious, it will only detect it or generate alert about it. It will so if you are thinking how will it confirm whether it is suspicious or malicious, that is automatic. That is what AI is for, right? If some threat is malicious, right, it will basically kill and quarantine the threat, right? So kill means it will kill the process. Quarantine means it will quarantine the files, right? Remediate means it will roll back the process activities the process did, right? That the process that originated due to that process, right? And when I say roll back, it means it will completely roll back the file system, right? Entire rollback, which means everything will be rolled back to a previous file system state, right? I think that should be clear, right? We have various detection engines. So this is what so basically this is what enhances SentinelOne's capabilities to basically work on an endpoint. These are the engines responsible for its detection capabilities, protection capabilities, and investigation capabilities, right? We have other things like agent settings. So as you can see, anti-damper. So basically this means, so I'll go a little bit deep into the details here. Forgive me if it's too much to, right? So basically, if I say rollback, right? Rollback works on a Windows or a functionality called VSS, volume shadow storage, right? So that creates copies of your file system regularly. Let's say every 4 hours, right? It will take a snapshot of your file system. So what anti-damper means is, so if there is a malware incident or a ransomware incident on your system, this anti-damper will protect those snapshots. Because if those snapshots are gone, you cannot roll back your file system, right? So this anti-tamper feature will protect your snapshots from being corrupted by the malware or ransomware. Okay. So I guess this is clear, right? Moving on, we have UI configurations. Now there is something called deep visibility, right? So I'll come to this at a later point in time, right? We have blacklists. Basically, these are a signature or known signatures or known hashes. Obviously, this is for just a double verification, like a multi-factor authentication, right? We have exclusions. Exclusions are basically to prevent, to reduce. Obviously, see, any automated tool will generate a little bit of false positives, right? It is to reduce those false positives, right? We have network control. Network control means you can control your endpoints network. It has like various features, various fields which you can configure to have a control over what type of network is flowing, right? We have device control. So this gives you a control over what devices are being connected to your endpoint. For example, USB, Bluetooth, right? We have packages. Packages are like endpoint files. So these files you can download from here, and then your agent will be set up. So these are basically this is pretty much it. Coming back to our sentinels, we can see our sentinel is in red state, which means it has something going on, right? So I'll open the sentinel, right? Basically agent, and you will see. So this is online. It is connected. It shows the whole status, right? It shows memory details and all those kinds of details. It also shows what apps are running on the system, right? This can be seen from here itself. So basically what it will tell you is what applications are running on the system. Do they have any kind of risk associated with them? It will check for if some kind of malware or some kind of malicious identity infected those files, right? So that is also done by SentinelOne, right? Coming back to incidents. Now, if I open it up, right? Coming back to Sentinel, sorry, right? If I open it up, it shows general. Now, here you can see what version it is, what IP it is, and stuff like that, right? It also shows what different types of actions you can take place on the endpoint from the console, right? This will give you an basically idea of what type of control you have over the endpoint, right? Moving on, there is also something called incidents, right? So whatever is happening on your system gets registered as an incident, right? So let's say for past 24 hours, what are the incidents we have? Oh, okay, we have 2 incidents. So maybe these are the reasons why our machine is red, right? So I'll talk more about these at a later stage, right? We have activity. In activity, we can see what happened on the device. It says like I logged on to the management console. Okay, these are the targets. Now moving to the real stuff. Basically, what I did, there is a website called iCar. iCar provides malware samples. So these are totally harmless. They don't affect your system, but you should still be careful with it, right? So you can download malwares from an like iCar website. So what I did was, okay, now my access is blocked because this is a malicious website. So this is what I configured earlier. So what I did was I went to Sentinels. I did network control. And here you can see I blocked a particular website, which is icar.org, right? So for now, I'll disable this because it is hindering my capability to look at the website. So I'll go back again to the website and I'll try to reload it. Right now the website is visible, right? So basically what I'll do is I'll say icar and icar. I'll just say icar. Okay. So download anti-malware test files. We can go here and we can see we have certain files here. So what I'll do is I'll download a zip file. But before that, let me see what configuration is there. It's in detect mode, right? Which means it will only generate an alert. It will not do anything. I'll go there. I'll download the zip file. It has downloaded. Now, the moment I download it, an alert is generated, but no action is taken on it, right? So if I configure it to protect mode and I save the changes, right? What it will do is, if I try to download it again, just look here, right? If I try to download it again, it will say download error, which means it is not letting it download. So this is the difference between detect and protect mode, right? Now we'll come back to the console. We'll see what incidents are happening. Now we'll look, okay, we have downloaded a file, right? It is a zip file. We'll look at it. So this is what its overview looks like. What was the file? What is the correct threat state? Is it mitigated or not? What kind of AI confidence level So basically AI's confidence level is checked there. So I've mentioned two confidence levels, suspicious and malicious. So AI is very sure that this is a malicious file, right? We have different types of fields here with different types of matrices. We also have a detection type which is static. So basically static is a type of file which cannot originate some other process or affect some other process. The other type of file is a dynamic file, right? So we have to look out for those dynamic files, right? Unfortunately, that is not covered in today's demo, right? We have something called a deep visibility, but before that, we will look at, we'll explore a little bit more about it. So right now, since it is not affecting any other process, it is not generating any issues there, right? We have the timeline. This is what the star was about, right? We can see when it started, how it moved forward. So basically the complete timeline for this, right? We'll come back here and we will go to hunt now. So basically this was the deep visibility part that I showed earlier, right? So I'll do hunt now. So this is what is really important in terms of investigation. So what it will do is basically it will monitor every activity happening on the endpoint, right? And it will generate alerts, or it will generate feeds, or I would say events, right? And it will categorize those events and based on endpoint name, object type, and different types of feeds, right? So this is where we can get more information about what happened, right? So as you can see, and talking about the depth of it, to what depth does it go? I'll have to go back to the Sentinel. I'll have to go back to the policy and I'll have to show you. So basically, it monitors process, files, URLs. It can go up to URL level. It will know what you were trying to do, right? And what generated that activity. If you have downloaded something, from where you have downloaded it. It will go deep into DNS level, registry keys level. So this is where ransomware usually affects, right? So they try to encrypt the registry keys or change the registry keys. So this will have a view of that, right? So basically this kind of depth we can go into, right? Then we have reports, various types of reports, and then we have a automation options as well, right? So this is what this is what SentinelOne is about. Obviously, this is not just it. We have a lot of things to talk about. This is just, I would say, the surface of it, right? So other things are not included because of the timeline of the webinar, right? So if you want, you can, send a request to us. We can, basically schedule a demo or a session for you specifically, and then we can talk more about it, right? So over to you, Kunal.
Thanks, Prajwal. We are almost at the end of the hour. I hope the time spent was good. It was a knowledge session. We have a question from Jackson William. Does SentinelOne provide automated context and correlation across different security layers? Prajwal, you want to answer that?
Yes. So basically, if you want to just if you are referring to correlating different activities happening at different stages, I'll say yes, it does, right? So what it does is, as I showed, like deep visibility, right? So it will log those all fields. It will try to correlate, and there was a part called automation, right? You can write queries there where they will automatically relate and correlate all the types of threats and threat incidents together, right? Does that answer your question, Jack? Okay, great. We have a few more questions here. How false positive results are addressed in SentinelOne. Okay, so this is what the exclusion part was about. So in exclusions, we can configure exclusions. Basically, exclusions are false positives which you want to exclude from the results, right? So those things can be excluded if you are very sure that this is a false positive, right? That can be excluded. It says next question is how data backup and retention works in the SentinelOne. So basically in SentinelOne logs all the endpoint activities, right? But it only shows you whatever is required for you. other things are also stored in the background. Now, SentinelOne by default provides 14 days of data retention, which can be improved to 365 days, right? Basically an year extension that can be done. So initially it will provide you 14 days of data retention, and that data retention is for what you are seeing in the deep visibility. It's not for whatever is stored in the background, right? So does that answer your question, Andrew? Okay. So Sheesh Mani is asking how does SentinelOne identify obfuscation techniques and defense evasive techniques? Okay. So the thing is, SentinelOne is so you would have heard of MITRE tactics, right? Oh, sorry, attack, right? MITRE attack framework, right? So basically, MITRE attack has its own techniques and tactics laid out completely, right? So SentinelOne works on those tactics and techniques, right? I think right now I don't have a dynamic threat so that I can show you, but I can definitely send you more information about it. But I'll tell you for now. It maps the threat activities or malware activities based on what MITRE has provided. So as you might know, MITRE has everything covered up. They have different phases of attacks. Under each phase, what is happening? So that is everything is covered in under MITRE framework, right? So it relates to that, and it provides you insights based on that. So it detects based on that.
Seshmani, is it? I mean, these are really good questions. Obfuscation and defense evasive techniques. We have a MITRE expert here. Maybe it will be good to have a session with you separately to explain much more detail about how do you secure yourself against those tactics.
Okay, so we have a couple more questions. Can we easily integrate with leading SOAR tools? Has it done before in the past? If yes, what leading SOAR tools? Okay. So in terms of what has been done before in the past, and what leading SOAR tools are we talking about? This is a question I can come back to you about. I can have an answer. I don't really have an answer right now, but
can I take some?
Yeah.
SOAR is basically orchestration and automated response. Now, SentinelOne in itself is capable of taking many of the healing actions in itself. Beyond this, if you need any more, it can be integrated with next-gen SIEM and SOAR solutions like SecureOnyx or Splunk, and the actions can be driven from those SIEM and SOAR tools themselves. It has a very good integration with the leading SOAR solutions like Phantom. SecureOnyx has its own SOAR platform, or even IBM Resolute. It can integrate very well. Next question I'll pick up. Does EDR work effectively protect us when we are disconnected from internet traveling? I mean, when the agent is not connected or the endpoint is not connected.
Yep. So I'll take this one.
Yeah, please.
So basically, the control is from cloud. So obviously this will be a question: if we are not protected from network, if we are not, how will we control the center? But the thing is, control is a different thing, right? Independently, SentinelOne agent is capable of running all those activities. The engines are not on the cloud; they are on the agent itself. It's just a connectivity on between the cloud and the agent, just to update those data, just to update those feeds, right? Everything is on the agent itself, right? Correct. So what it will do is, even if you are disconnected from the network, it will protect you, but it will not be able to update that data to the cloud. It will not show it in the cloud. It will not show what threat affected you or what are the different activities it performed, right? But it will still protect you.
So the device needs to be connected initially when the agent is being installed and the settings are in place. Once the settings have been done, the configuration changes have been done, it's good to go. An example of that could be, say we disabled, for example, I'm just picking this up, that you disable a USB port for data transfer while allowing it for T3. That policy will still be in place, will still be protected if a USB is inserted with any file which has got a rock signature, which is not behaving as it should be. The Sentinel will still be able to protect you. That's the bottom line. The answer is yes, it will still protect.
Thank you.
Interesting questions here. Anything more? Any more questions from anyone? Do I need a SIEM if I have EDR? What kind of additional deep dive analytics I can do in SIEM that I cannot do in EDR console? Right. Primarily, these are two different solutions. Can I get your name?
It's Ram Kunal.
Okay. So SIEM provides you a lot of context. Why do organizations use a SIEM? I mean, they can have a NBAT tool, they can have a DLP tool, they can have a different IoT console. You know, there are so many consoles available where you can do monitoring for each specific component, your infra component. But where does SIEM actually plays a role? It brings up all the alerts from all these different monitoring tools into one platform, and it helps the analyst build up the context. Now, individual alerts might not show the plethora or the depth of risk or threat it has, but when it is combined with the context, it can give you much more power to address the threat and protect for future as well. That's what typically SIEM does. EDR is quite focused on healing and protecting against the attacks or malware or ransomware things at an endpoint level. When you integrate SIEM and EDR together, SIEM will be able to get that context also from endpoint. It can identify which are all the end users which got infected. It can stop infection. It can contain and quarantine those endpoints directly. There are many actions you can take from SIEM itself on the EDR, and there are many actions where EDR definitely will be needed. If you ask me an example, which you can do in SIEM, but you cannot do in EDR. That's a very wide question, Ram, because say, for example, you want to block an IP, or you want to play around with enforce some policies on your firewall appliances, which EDR will not be able to do, right? What I guess you meant is actions with EDR can do, with SIEM cannot do.
Yeah. In case if there are both the scenarios, I'm looking at both, Kunal. In case if it's only one scenario, yeah, that also is good to understand.
Yeah. So one, I already explained to you what SIEM can do. SIEM can look at many of your cloud instances. It can look at your IAM feeds. It can correlate from all of them, and it can give you much more depth in terms of analytics and monitoring or alerts. Now,
Okay.
what capabilities EDR can do, which SIEM cannot do, right? An example is rollback. Now, I got a file which is infected. One of the devices got ransomware attack. I need to now quarantine, which is just one action, but I need to do healing also. I need to remove all the malware files, and I need to restore back the original version of the file without infection. These kind of response actions, SIEM cannot do. That's when EDR comes into play.
Okay. Okay.
Right? It can heal, while SIEM can only raise an alert, and EDR can heal. It can help you with response actions.
Understood, Kunal. Thank you.
Good question.
There's one more question, which is what is the rate of false positives during initial deployment, and how much time I need to contribute in building manual tools for offenses? Okay, so Shishmani, actually the thing is we are running out of time right now, but I would like to answer this as a Kunal, do you want to take it?
Yeah, let me take this. So when you talked about there are two parts of the question, if I understand. One is what is the rate of false positive during the initial deployment, and how much time I need to contribute in building manual rules for offenses. Let me add the second question first. How much time you need to contribute in building manual rules? In the initial part, when I was talking about detection, you don't need to spend much time in building up the rules at all. Most of the rules are pre-configured. It can detect what kind of device endpoint it is running. It can detect what are the applications they are running. It can also detect whether they are really patches being applied or not. Are they running or not? Unless your organization has your own set of thresholds and rules which you need to do, it is good to go in as quick as a week's time. You can, it just hardly take 3-4 days to do this, to implement the SentinelOne. Now, even those 3-4 days, what do we do? There are two major parts of the activity which are involved in the implementation. Part one is removing or uninstalling your existing endpoint, because otherwise they will conflict each other. So it takes time sometimes to push these changes, uninstall, and again, depending on the size of the organization, the tools you are using for configuration changes. If you are using big fix, again, it's a push of a button and it's done. The second changes which are required as a part of the initial configuration is setting up your user groups. What you would also like to understand is in an organization of a fairly large size, you would have different type of groups: your sales team, your marketing team, your finance team, your end user development team, security team, all would have a different profile. And you would like to set them up as separate groups and users to monitor their behavior differently. If that is the kind of configuration you require, that's where you spend your time initially. On the tool itself, configuring the changes, applying policies, they are pretty much straightforward. That's one thing.
One more point to add here is regarding that group part. So if you are using something like a big fix, right, you can during the initial bulk deployment, you can say that which group do you want to configure this particular Sentinel agent to. So for example, this endpoint you want to be in a group of marketing team. So you can during the initial deployment, you can mention that is possible. So that will reduce your effort.
Right. And now coming to your first question about what is the rate of false positive. Again, this is a very contextual answer to this, depending on how your traditional security has been. If it is a first time deployment, you have quite a number of unmanaged devices, mobile devices, or users which have traditionally the configuration changes have not been monitored, your false positive are going to be very high. But if you already have an existing way of addressing or managing your endpoints, like you're using Defender or you're using any other semantic kind of a tool, the false positive would not be that high in the initial period. And then the tool will self-learn. The false positive rate are pretty much managed because this is an AI-based tool. It can learn on its own and it can do all the detection on its own. So gradually, within 4 to 6 weeks, we see the false positive coming up to an acceptable level. Does it answer?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Good questions, by the way. I'll really love to spend some more time with you, Ms. Yashwani. Good. We are a little over our allotted time, and we'll wrap it up now. Feel free to reach out to us. I'll just type in my mail ID for everyone to reach out to me here. Prajwal, you may type yours as well. We'll be happy to pick up any of your questions, queries. We can help you with understanding, not just for SentinelOne, I'm saying, because the objective was not to just talk about it. This was one of the tools which you pick up. The objective here was more to emphasize on endpoint protection and seeing the rise. We are seeing now attacks happening all over the place. We get quite a lot. Many times we get into new threats coming in, new alerts coming in, which have not been dealt in the past. And this kind of things just to create awareness was the objective for the session today. Thank you, everyone. I know weekend is around the corner. Enjoy your day and look forward to speak to you again.
Thanks for your time.
Bye.
Thanks for joining, guys.